Hello, this is Mr. Doty, and well, this is the Revit class that we're going to be working on this semester, and this is CAD216, and just a little introductory. I've looked at the book, and I've kind of felt in the past that maybe I need to do a little explanation, hands-on kind of. Anyway, videos are always good, so here you go. So this is Revit. This is 2019, and when you open it up, a lot of times it'll actually come up to, well, the newer version like 18 and 19, they actually sometimes it'll come up to this screen. And if it does, then you can go to open, you can go to new. Now these are models, and then of course there's these things called families, and that's just blocks and different things that you can bring in. Like they've got an example of a table or a truss, or I don't know what that is. But anyway, things that you want to bring in that aren't like a wall, although there are wall families. So basically, a family is just a block or something that you're going to bring in and use in Revit. Okay, so when you come up, sometimes you'll come up to this screen. Sometimes you will be at not this screen. Okay, well, there's another screen that pops up, and that's okay. I don't know exactly why. Anyway, but a lot of times it'll show the last thing that you opened, or maybe they just changed it. I don't know. It seems like it comes up two different ways. So if it doesn't come up that previous screen way, that's okay. You're still going to have, you've got your pull down menus, right? So depending on what you're doing, and you'll notice they're all grayed out because they don't have anything loaded. Also, you'll know that you have your quick toolbar, however you want to call it. I forgot exactly what Autodesk calls it now. Sorry. But there's lots of stuff up here. So it's just like in AutoCAD where you can click on the little pull down arrow here, and it'll show you the things that you can check or uncheck. So you have all these options. So like if I check new, I can have new up here as well. So there's new, there's open. If I had something open, I could save. So these are all your little shortcuts in your little shortcut toolbar. Well, the first thing, then there's home. And this is what they're calling the home page. In some of your older versions, it looks a little different, but it's basically, it shows you the things that you, a lot of times it'll show you, or most of the time it shows you stuff that you've already opened, which I guess since I don't have my flash drive in there, it's not going to do that. And that is a true statement. If you don't have whatever media it is that had the file that you worked on last, if it's not on there or not in the computer or whatever, that when Revit boots up, then it won't show up here. So don't worry about it if it doesn't show up. You're like, oh, where's my stuff? All right, so anyway, so let's just say we want to start a new file, right? Well, the first thing it does is it asks you which template you want to have or want to use. And I'm going to use the architectural one. Now, I haven't looked in the book to double check the directions, but it should say use the architectural one. You'll notice you do have a construction, architectural, structural, and mechanical. Depends on what you're doing, because basically this Revit has three different versions inside of it. There's a structural Revit, and there's an MEP, or mechanical, electrical, plumbing version. Alright, so let's just move on and click on architectural template. Now, if for some reason these didn't load, then I would recommend that you go back and run through the installation process again, because sometimes like it'll even not load your libraries. There is a library that should come with it, but I have had it not install it before and then not realize it because the program's working until I need to pull something in, a family in, like a door or a window or something, and oh, guess what? It's not there. So then I have to go online and try to find it, or go find my library somewhere else. So if you don't have that, that's okay. And at some point, I'm going to see how large my library is, and I'm going to upload it here on the class so that you guys can have access to that one. I keep adding to mine, so I keep it in a different spot than the factory one. And it'll have to upload, it'll has to update the files sometimes, and it's okay. It's worthwhile though, because I know there's certain things that I like to use all the time. And actually, once you set up a drawing, so like architectural template, you could, if you were doing the same things over and over and over, working for a business and you're using Revit, then you could go in and you could actually create, set up your own template and call it whatever, doesn't have to be architectural, and you could save it into your templates folder just like we can do in, other software. Typically what I do is I just use one of the drawings that I already have, house plan, and pull it up and use it, or Revit file, and pull it up. Okay, so when we get into Revit, and I'll try not to ramble too much, when you get into Revit, here is just a basic overview. Here's your quick action toolbar up here. Switching windows. Now, in previous versions, you didn't have these cool tabs up here. So like every view that you open, it's going to show up here in these tabs, and I haven't gotten used to it yet, because I still keep wanting to go and either use the switch windows, or I go down here in my project browser and I click on the views to open it. I keep forgetting that they're up here, and oh hey, I can just click back and forth on them. That's really nice. It's a good addition. I'm kind of glad they did that. So this is our basic setup, and this kind of, if you think about it, it looks very similar to like SolidWorks or Inventor as far as the layout of how things are. And you'll notice that well, like if I go to modify, these should look awful familiar, most of them. Now this one won't, because this is the align command, and it's one of my favorites. But like move, copy, offset, mirror, rotate. Now this is a trim extend. They kind of put them together, but they kind of something similar to what you've seen before. Array, scale. There's a break or split element, which is the same as break. So, this is our modify. So anytime that you want to modify something, you can click on modify, the modify tab up here, and go there and, mess with it. All right, so I'm going to go back to architecture. Okay, so what happens if you don't have properties and you don't have project browser? You don't have those two tabs open, or dialog boxes, or whatever you want to call them. But anyway, what you want to do is you want to go to view, you want to go to user interface all the way over here at the side, and you can see which ones are turned on and which ones are not. Like there are some other ones that you might use if you were doing some more advanced stuff, but project browser and properties, so this guy and this guy are your two most important ones, because that's how you figure out what's going on. So like when I go to architecture and I pick wall, for instance, okay, so when I go there under properties, it tells me what kind of wall it is, and I know I'm on level 1, and this is just a way of getting around in your your different areas, like levels, ceiling plans, which I'm not going to worry about, and so you can open and close them with a little plus and minus. And then you have elevations, right? So basically this is how you can get around in Revit. So like if I had level 2, I could click on level 2 and see it shows up here. But then if I want to go back to level 1, and then these are elevations. So these are plan views. These are your front, rear, left, and right sides. And you know, a lot of times what I do, of course, obviously north is up, south is down, east is to the right, and west is left. Well, what I'll do is I'll rename them. So like west, rename it. So my west elevation would be my, and I'm going to turn on my cap locks, left elevation, like so, right? And then south would be my front elevation. Oop, and apparently I can't spell. All right. So anyway, you get the idea. Now I don't have anything drawn yet, and these guys right here, these are actually showing where my elevations are coming from. Like if I click on this, no, there it is. So I am looking from here going this way, and that's what it's looking at. So if my building is over here, then I'm almost doing, well, I'm doing basically a section view and looking inside of it. So you want to try and keep your model inside of these. Now you can move them if you needed to. So like if you had a really big project and you needed to move them, you can do it like anything else. You can put a window around it, and then if you hover over it, you get your move symbol, or it's been selected. So up here you've got move, and then you can just pick a starting point and move it over. Kind of cool. If you didn't want to see these things, there's two ways you can do it. You got down here in the bottom, right? See, this is your scale. Detail level, I always make mine fine so that it shows up things better. Hidden line, I usually leave mine on hidden line. You can do wireframe, which is kind of funky looking. Shaded gives you just some colors on things. Consistent colors is a little more realistic. And then realistic are actual, it should look realistic, and it does. So if you're doing renderings, then that's the mode you'd want it on. Okay, the other things down here, sun path, if we wanted to show shadows, if we were doing a rendering, and then there's shadows, crop view, and show crop region. So like if I click on here, let's say you had a whole building and you wanted to just show part of it, you know, for a certain view, you can use this to kind of crop it out. You pick on it, you move it around, and so on. So then like if I didn't want to see those guys in the view like so, because they would show up, I could do that, and I can say, well, it's actually cropped already. See, if I turn that off, they'll come back. But if I do that, it's cropped out. And then if I don't want to see this guy, I just turn him back off. So now I can be drawing, and only stuff will show up that's inside of my box. Right? Okay, so I'm going to turn that off. I'm going to hide my crop region. Now, if I don't want it to show up at all, there's a couple things I can do. So let me put a window around this. You can right click on it. You can go to hide in view, and you can hide elements, or you can hide category. Now these things are all the same. These elevation markers are all the same. So I could hit category and it'll get rid of all of them. Alright, so I'm going to undo it. Your other option is if you go down here to the little sunglasses here, or glasses, And you can do the same thing where it says, oh, do you want to hide it? Do you want to isolate it? So I could hit hide category. Now, if it's just like, if it's a line or if it's like a chair or something, you know, you don't necessarily want to hide all the chairs, or if it's a wall that you don't want to show, you may just hide that wall. You don't want to hide all of them. If you did, then all your walls go away, right? Or all your doors go away, or, you know, so on and so forth. So anyway, I can click hide element, and notice this turns blue. Well, to get that to go away, you have to kind of finish it out. You have to go to either reset. So like, let's say you just want to temporarily hide something. That's kind of what I think what this was supposed to be used for. Uh, but I forget, and I use this all the time. But you have to do a two-step process. You hide this stuff, like um, hide category, and then you say apply. Boom. All right, well, what if I didn't want to do that? Or what if I want to turn it back on? Well, then you go to the little light bulb next to it, and it shows the things that are hidden. Like this right here is actually the center, or the center location of our, or it says project base point. So this is our project base point, and you can actually put in, um, you know, coordinates, like off of a map, GPS coordinates, and you can actually locate objects in real life. You can add all kinds of things to Revit, actually. So anyway, but let's keep it simple. I'm just trying to show you a few different things you may or may not know how to do. Try not to drag this out too much. So anyway, these things are hidden, and I know I want to keep my walls within this area. So what I'm going to do for right now is I'm going to go back, and I'm going to highlight that guy, and then up here it says I can either unhide the element or unhide the category. I'm going to click unhide category, and then I'm just going to turn my little light bulb off. Oh, shoot. Apparently, I have to unhide the element also. So there you go. All right, so let's get down to, in the book, it shows you how to draw walls. So, right, you start off with walls. You click on here, and so it says to pick, you know, an interior, exterior, something, right? I think it says to pick a generic, and see, you may have end up with different walls because I picked architecture. It may have said pick construction. I don't remember. Or here's a generic 8-inch wall, right? Or generic 6-inch wall. So what do you do? All right, you've got your little plus. There's two sides to the wall, right? There's an inside and outside. So when you pick and then you drag and then you pick, you see the little arrow right there? Whichever side it's on is the outside. Well, guess what? I am drawing it the wrong way. Because if I pick this like so, my outside is on the inside. And you're saying, well, how do you know that? Well, okay, I'm going to hit escape. And then I'm going to hit escape one more time to get out of my command. And I'm going to pick the wall. See that right there? That means that's the outside. Well, if I have siding showing, or brick, or stone, or whatever my outside is, my exterior finish, it's not going to show up. So I need to pick that to flip it outside. And these kinds of little arrows are on a bunch of the different items in here, whether it's a door, it's a window, a wall. A lot of them have these little, well, they all have little arrows like this, or most of them do, so that you can flip them around. Alright, so I guess because I'm left-handed, I think I need to go counterclockwise. I don't know why. But if you were to draw clockwise, like so, right? You'll notice that they're all on the outside like they're supposed to be. And I don't know why I can't get it in my brain to draw it that way, but that's the way it is. Now, you'll notice you can do a crossing window, and there's a regular window, just like in AutoCAD. I'm holding down and then letting go. when it catches it, and then if you use your delete button on the keyboard, you can get rid of it. You can also, when you pick something, it goes to modify. This right here is delete, but I use the delete button on the keyboard. Okay, so I drew some walls, right? Alright, well, if I highlight all of them, right, I can grab them and I can move them. I could center them here on my thing like so. Now, something else on here is when you pick something, notice it says activate dimensions. So I could click on activate dimensions. The only problem is that I didn't just pick one. Right? Now, the one thing that, and this is really the main reason for the video, I am one of the main reasons. The book doesn't explain to you that, and this is what got me when I was first trying to learn how to use this program. They didn't explain that you really need to go up here to annotate, and once you draw something, is go put some dimensions on it. Now you'll notice that it starts out at wall center lines, and that's fine. So let's pick wall center lines, and we'll just pick that, and I'm going to pick, there we go. Alright, I'm going to hit escape. Now these are permanent, or you know, they're there. They're not going to go away. They're not temporary dimensions. If you pick on an item and it doesn't have a dimension on it, then it'll show a temporary one. So like if I go to architecture and draw a wall, and let me say I drew a wall right there, and you'll notice that when I pick the starting point and then it has the ending point, I can type in a distance. Now the difference between Revit and AutoCAD and some of your other programs is it defaults to feet. So if I type in 15, that is feet. If I wanted to put in inches, I can hit the space bar without using my feet and inches, you know, that's feet, that's inches. I don't have to type that in necessarily, so I could say 15.1 and enter. And then I could point it this direction, just like I could do in AutoCAD, and I could say 6 feet 7 inches, right? And then what if I just wanted, let's say I wanted it to go down 8 inches. Well, I can either do 0 space 8, right? Or I can type in 8 inches. And I always forget to use the inch mark, and I end up making it 8 feet, or I fat finger it and things move. So what do you do when that happens? Well, you can hit escape, and then you can go up here and you can hit undo, and it fixes things normally, right? Remember, Control Z is also your escape button. So if I pick on this without any dimensions, see, it gives me temporary dimensions. If I wanted that to be a permanent dimension, I can pick on it. Let's see. And then you scroll in with your mouse, hold down with your middle mouse button, and you can pan around. I want to make that there. Alright, and then when I click off of it, I have the dimensions. To move dimensions, you just grab them in the middle there. If you double click on them like this, that's going to pop up. So in some of your other programs, that's what you're used to doing. Well, that's not how Revit works. You want to pick the object that you want to edit, and then you want to pick the dimension that's highlighted. And if you have more than one thing, like if you hold down Control and add something to your selection, so Control adds, Shift, if I hold down Shift, I can deselect. So to add things to my items, see, I can pick these 2 items there. Notice my dimensions turn back to black, but I get activate dimensions up here in the top left. So I can click on activate dimensions, and then it's going to give me dimensions that I can adjust. Like, oh, hey, there's a dimension that I can mess with. Alright, so when I want to move something or change the dimension on something, like I need this to be 53. So I need to pick either this wall or this wall that I want to actually move. So you need to think about how your walls are related. So if, let's say I go to annotate and I click on aligned and I put a dimension from here to here, right? And I can right click and hit cancel, right click cancel, or I could have hit escape. Depends on if you're lazy, like me. I was right then. And it just depends on what you're doing. You know, maybe, you know, you're drawing in a laptop and you don't want, you know, you don't really want to hit your escape button. A lot of times I'll draw with my one hand on the keyboard on the escape button, and you know, so that I can type in numbers, and then I'll have my right hand on my mouse. Okay, so if I pick this, then it's going to adjust this dimension or this dimension. Actually, it will adjust both. So I can say, I need this to be 53. So I type in 53 and then enter. Well, now that is 10 foot 7. Well, if I change that to 10 foot, then it's also going to change this one. So I need to think about, okay, that's not the wall that I want to adjust. This is the wall that I want to adjust for this dimension so that I don't mess this one up. Now, something else you can do is you can pick on a dimension and you get this lock. I will warn you though, sometimes you can lock too many dimensions and or forget that you locked it, and then things aren't working the way you want and you don't know why, or you accidentally locked it and things don't move the way you want. So there's lots of stuff that can go on. But you can lock them sometimes, and it helps keep you from moving things maybe you don't want to. But now I will warn you to not lock everything, because then it'll be so locked down that it doesn't want to move. Kind of like when you put too many constraints in Inventor or SolidWorks. Okay, so I want to move this wall, so I pick on it and I click that, and so let's say I wanted it to be 10. Okay. Something else with your dimensions, you know, you can go from the center of walls, you can go from wall faces, center of core, faces of core. One of the things that I'll probably make a video on later, talking about these a little bit more in depth. Typically we don't dimension the center lines of walls. It's just not practical in the real world. It's a whole lot easier to go to either wall faces, you know, if it's an existing, or faces of core. And what that is, it's be like, you know, if you're measuring from one wall to another wall, you know, like the bottom plate of one wall to the bottom plate of another wall, then if I was building that, then I would want to know where the edge of that stud is, okay, or the edge of my structural member. So I'm going to dimension from stud to stud, which that would be faces of core. And later on I'll show you how to work with the walls and adjust them differently. Like I said, I don't want to waste a ton of time. I'm already up to 28 minutes and haven't shown you a ton of things. So pardon if I'm going too slow, but I want you to understand how this works. Alright, so in the book it doesn't explain that you should put dimensions on things to get things to work and go the way you want them to. Like I said, you can even pick the object, and if it's not connected to anything or even connected in one spot, you can change dimensions like so. Okay, so and this is just in plan view, and there's other things you can do. Now in the chapter 2, another thing that you do, you go to architecture, you go to door, and so in my case, this is all I have because this is what I started with. So depending on, so 36 by 84, in the book it tells you that 84 inches is, of course, obviously 7 feet, and then 80 inches is 6 foot 8. Well, 6 foot 8 is your residential height, and 7 foot, or 84 inches, that is your commercial height for doors. And of course your windows are located at that same height depending on which one you're doing. Or at least that's, you know, the typical head height for it. Your header is at the same height that you put over your door or window. Okay, so I'm going to go 30 by 80, and notice it says, oh, you have a little circle with a slash through it. Well, that means that I can't put it wherever I'm at. And there are a lot of things that are what we call nested. In other words, they have to be inside of something else, like this. Wall, doors, windows, some of your symbols for like electrical symbols or ceiling fixtures for electrical, or like a fan, or even plumbing fixtures. Some of them are set to where you can't put them in, like a tub, unless it's sitting on a wall. So you pick, and there it is. There's your door. Well, I can just keep putting doors in, right? And I can pick which side I want it on, in or out. Does it swing in? Does it swing out? Typically, on residential, they swing in. They can swing out. On commercial, they're going to swing out just because of fire egress or safety egress, however you want to say it. All right, so right, I'm going to hit escape, get out of that. And let's say I wanted to change this door. Well, I can change it. I can pick on it. I can pick the little arrows. I can flip the sides. However I want to do. I can pick up here. I can change sizes as far as the width. If I didn't have a size that I wanted, I can click on Edit Type and pull this back over. This should show up. I have two screens, so sometimes things go somewhere else. It gives me information. So here's how you adjust or make another version of it. Let's say I wanted a 24-inch door. So I click on Duplicate. I would change the name of it to 24, and do that, back that up, hit OK. Come down here to Width and change that to 2 and hit OK. Well, now I have a 2-foot door. And the reason that it changed that one is because I had picked it. Now, if I was not in anything, and then I went to Door, and I went to Edit Type, then it may or may not add it. Whenever it'll add it, but it may or may not that be the one that is going to show up. Okay, so just think about where you're at whenever you go to make a new door or make a new whatever it is. Something else I can do is I can load stuff from the library from here. You can also, if you're in the I'm ready to put things in mode, hey, there's a door. I can go up here to load family, and then it's going to pull up this guy right here. And if your Imperial Library has been loaded, then you'll have these options. So like here's more doors. Here's a bunch that come with it. And then you have residential, commercial. Let's say I wanted to do this garage door. Hit open. It loads it. I can stick it in there. And there it is. Okay, now in the book it shows you how to use your 3D, default 3D view. You can click up here on that, and there you go. So now there's what it looks like in 3D. And we haven't done anything with settings yet, so this is just generic, no big deal. 3D mode just kind of helps show you where things are at. You can click around on it like so. Gives you a plan view, but it's not the exact same thing as this one. So remember, I can go back up here and click on level 1. I'm going to hit escape because I'm still in the middle of installing doors apparently, or I have it selected. Apparently it's blue. Alright, so I don't have anything selected. The other thing is in chapter 2 when you're doing the cabin is the roof. So if you click on roof, most of the time it'll say, oh hey, you're on your lowest level, do you want to move it up to the upper level? And yes, you usually say yes. Typically I'll be on my ceiling level. hopefully, and try to do that and get it to work right. So anyway, I'm going to hit yes, and then it grays this out, and you get this nice little setup up here of so you've got all these modify commands, and then you have this thing over here where you're going to check mark it when you're done. If you didn't want to do it, you can hit X and it'll go away. If you want to just pick walls, this is handy. Pick walls. Notice it says overhang is 0, and then base offset from level is 0, which is fine. I think in your book something happens to where it ends up being a foot off of the top of the wall, which that is what it is. So in the book they have you do this. They have you pick walls. You pick walls, you do this like so. Now I was helping somebody and this showed up as an angle. So that tells me that they didn't pick the right template when they started. So if you pick the architectural one, it's going to show up as pitch, and see it shows a little triangle, and that triangle means that it has a slope or pitch to the roof, and the default on this one is a 9. On my computer, every time I do it, it's always a 10. Don't know why. That's just the default on the files that I guess I'm using. But for 2019, the default seems to be a 9. And so what does that mean? That means for every 9 inches of run or sideways, I'm sorry, for every, geez, it's too early. For every foot of run, in other words, length, it goes up 9 inches. Sorry. It's too early, I guess. Alright, anyway, of course, if you're watching this video and it's the middle of the night, you're going to say, what? Okay, so when I'm done, I don't have an overhang, which typically we do. If you wanted to have an overhang, you could, well, I'm still in pick mode, so I would have to get out of my pick mode, and then I would need to pick my lines. And if I want to pick more than one, remember you hold down control, right? Control, and then I could actually edit all 4 of them. I could come up here and change that to a 1 foot overhang, which is pretty typical for what I do. Define slope, if I take that off, since they're all picked, I end up with a flat roof, right? If I deselect, and let's say I pick that guy and I wanted to define the slope, okay? Well, here, let's just hit this and see what happens. Now, you get this every time. Would you like to attach the highlighted walls to the roof? Sometimes yes, sometimes no. In this case, I'll say yes, just so that I don't have to extend them up. And then let's click on our 3D view right here, and let's look at it and see what it looks like. Hey, that's weird looking, isn't it? Different. Okay, well, that's a 9 pitch, right? Like so. Okay. Let's go back to our top view. Now, when you're in 3D view, you can actually edit the footprint, and when you do that, you could go in and say, well, what if we just make that define slope? And then let's hit our green button. Alright, what does that look like? So your 3D view, sometimes it's nice where you can actually go in and say, that's interesting. Oh, and by the way, here's your roof types over here. So you have these different kinds of roofs. So like there's a rafter shingle one like that. Apparently we need to go in and put something in to make it look better. And we're on hidden line, so fine. Let's hit fine and see what happens. Nothing. Okay, so we don't have a hatch pattern on there. Something we can learn later on. Alrighty then. So let's go back. So back in your in the book, you're saying, man, you're taking care of it. Click on edit footprint, and then I'm going to go back and I'm going to define slope, and I'm going to define slope, and then I'm going to click on that, and then guess what? There it is. Boom. That's what you're supposed to have, or something similar. Of course, I didn't use the dimension tile of the book, but the little cabin is going to kind of look something similar as far as your roof. It tells you to put a slope on all 4 sides. So anyway, this is just kind of a highlight, how to figure out how to use Revit. So I hope that this has been a helpful video, and I will do my best to make something else, and I apologize for those of you if you think I ramble on and it's too long. But hopefully it helps somebody out there, and we'll see you next time.